Stoicism isn't about never feeling anything. Every day, there's a 50% chance that you're not going to want to do it. I will do what I need to do, regardless if I feel like it or not. Emotions are a gift. There's nothing wrong with men crying. Emotional suppression might be acceptable. Self-love isn't just hugging yourself, saying, I love myself. You're saying you love yourself too much. It's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay there indefinitely. Let's get this misconception straight. Stoicism isn't about never feeling any emotion. Stoicism is about controlling your emotions so that you can feel something, but not necessarily act on it. It's not always the wrong move to act on an emotion, but it's not the right move to act on the emotion without processing it and thinking about if you should or not. Now, obviously, there's nuance there because things happen quickly. But Stoicism is taking a step back and before acting on emotions, especially negative ones, asking yourself if it's worth acting on. If you allow your emotions and your feelings into the driver's seat, you give away all of your control and all of your power. You become completely at the mercy of wherever they want you to go, which they don't actually have an intention for you. They're not a thing. They're just emotions. That's just what they are. They are from a biological standpoint, they are just there to keep you alive. Our logical mind knows that there are things more important than emotions, things that must be done, things that must not be done. But because we have this battle within our own minds, it's often a fight between emotional and logical. Because it would be dishonest to say that emotions don't matter. Emotions are a part of life. They're a beautiful part of life. They are what arguably make us human. And not only human, but alive. They are the core essence of the experience of life. Everything we do, to a degree, is for our emotions. And every emotion, to a degree, is for the logical building of something. It's a synergy. They work together. And that's the beautiful part of it. I don't believe there's anything inherently bad about emotions themselves. They're not the devil. They're a part of life. Every experience that you have that you can vividly remember, there's most likely a strong emotion tied to it of some sort. The key thing is that we don't want to hand over our keys to our emotions. We don't want to give them all the power. If you are behaving in a masculine way, if you are a man, if that's what you want to do, then you must not give over your power to your emotions. Especially negative ones. Doing so helps no one. As a man, you must be able to conquer your own emotions if you're ever going to conquer anything else. Everybody wants to conquer the world, but nobody is willing to conquer themselves. We must go within and learn the skill of resilience. Resilience can only be taught through going through hard shit and building the mental calluses on your mind. Building that fortitude, that endurance. Which is why it's so important to put yourself through difficult things. The reason you need to start putting yourself through difficult things is to build the calluses on your mind, to build the mental resilience. Because that mental resilience is what will get you through the tough times towards a pursuit of a goal. If you want anything, any path that you choose, whether you choose to go towards a goal or you choose to completely go wherever life takes you, I can guarantee you that there's a steaming pile of shit waiting for you. There's things in the way that you won't want to deal with. So you might as well choose the path that will get you to your goal, to a goal, to something that you want. Because otherwise, you have to go through the same thing, but you don't get anywhere. You don't get anything in return. Especially if you allow it to control you, if you allow it to push you over. Then you just go through the shit, you take it, and you don't push back at all, and you don't learn anything from it. You cry, boo-hoo, woe is me, but then you never learn anything. That just leads to you being unhappy. It's a double whammy. Because not only did you not get the thing, but you had to go through the shit, you didn't learn anything from the shit, and then you're just left with nothing. Choose the pain that you want to go through. Because there's pain either way, no matter what you do. So you might as well choose the pain that will get you somewhere greater. On the pursuit of anything, you are going to have to, if it's a high enough caliber goal, if it's actually worthwhile and stretches you outside of your comfort zone and makes you a better person, it's going to require consistency and it's going to require persistence. That's why Stoicism is so important. Because you wake up one day and you don't feel like it. You wake up and something terrible happened the night before. Maybe you got dumped. Maybe your best friend said something asinine to you. Maybe you got a flat tire. You wake up pissed off. That's all you can focus on because that's how your mind works. Negative bias. That's natural. But you don't want to stay there. You don't want to stay there and be, I'm pissed off, therefore I don't have to do anything today. Don't let it be your scapegoat. Don't let it be your excuse. You're not entitled to that. Stop with this entitlement shit. Call it out for what it is, entitlement. That's exactly what this is. Because you know what? Every day, there's I'd say a 50% chance that you're not going to want to do it. Might be lower, might be higher. Doesn't matter. There's too high of a chance that you're going to have these feelings of, I don't want to do it. I am entitled to not doing it in some way or another. Practice Stoicism. I will do what I need to do, regardless of if I feel like it or not. That is what discipline is. And Stoicism only aids in that. Stoicism says, I will not react in a way that is unfavorable because of my emotions. Discipline and stoicism go hand in hand. Here's a controversial one. You can use the fuel, the anger of you got a flat tire last night, or your friend said something asinine to you last night. Wake up and use that anger towards something. Arguably, anger is a wasty fuel. It can do damage to you, right? It wears you out quicker. But doing something rather than nothing at all because you're entitled and feeling a certain way is far better. Hey, real quick, if you're struggling with porn or lust, I put together a free 10-minute training that breaks down the yin-yang states that help me stop giving into urges and find peace without white-knuckling it. It's no fluff, just the exact framework that made the biggest difference for me. If that sounds helpful, click the link below. It's 100% free, and if not, enjoy the rest of this episode. My point is, Stoicism isn't about never feeling emotions, and it's not about never acting on your emotions either. It's about using your emotions in a very direct, controlled way. You can use any emotion to your advantage. You don't want to just blow up and have a blast radius of damage because, for example, you're angry. I'm sitting here shouting because I'm passionate about this. Passion and anger are next door neighbors. They're both aggressive. But you know what I'm not doing? I'm not going out there angrily about everything, about getting angry about the smallest shit and letting it control me or like make me fly off the handle. My anger, my passion is very controlled. It's the difference between setting off a grenade and having it have a blast radius and doing damage to everything around you. It's uncontrolled. It's the difference between that and taking all that energy, all of that anger, and laser focusing it into a very small pinhole, minute laser and using it to, for example, cut down a tree. The explosion is much more damage inducing. You can't control that. You don't know what it's going to affect. You don't know what's going to get hurt in the process, including yourself. But if you're stoic enough, you can take that, all that same energy and direct it towards a worthwhile pursuit. Truthfully, that's the only way to get things done. If you're going to use what I'd call low-level emotions, shame, anger, guilt, some of the times you should just let go of those because sometimes they're just not going to help you. Sometimes they're too untamable, too wild to control. But if you're able to, direct it, use it, put it into something. Whatever fuel that you are given, use it. One of the biggest disadvantages that you can have is having no fuel at all, meaning not feeling anything. Emotions are a gift, whether they're bad or good. Emotions give you the spark of life. Why do we watch movies and TV shows and entertainment? Because they spark emotions inside of you. Any entertainment that gives zero emotion is boring and is arguably a bad piece of entertainment. That is the point of entertainment. To take you on a journey of emotional, like a roller coaster. That's why people say you have to have a passion. Because a passion gives you fuel. Emotions are the zest of life. So if you don't have a passion, you're running on nothing. Passion and love are two of the greatest fuels for the human psyche. But use what you have. It doesn't matter what fuel you're given. Things must be done. You need that consistency. You need that persistency. You need that day-to-day discipline. And if you're able, use those fuels to help you. Those emotions to amplify whatever it is that you need to get done. Will it most likely get rid of or fix the problem if you use that fuel towards a pursuit? Probably not. But your body doesn't know the difference. If you're pissed off at something and you go and use it and you crunch out 30 push-ups and then you go and do pull-ups and you do squats, your body is going to feel that anger and it's going to course through your body, and then you're going to slowly use it and release it. Which proves that emotions are fuel. If it can be used up like that, then it's fuel. Use what you've got. You can feel. You should feel. I encourage it. That's what's part of being fully alive. Feeling things. But the moment that you let anger or shame or sadness or anything like that steer is the moment you lose. You should always be in the driver's seat. Nothing else. If you let something else, a feeling, into the driver's seat, it's the equivalent of strapping your can of gas into the driver's seat and putting a brick on the pedal, the gas pedal. It doesn't care if it crashes. It doesn't care. There's no logical thought behind it because it's literally purely emotion. You're allowing your fuel to drive, which is backwards. You drive. You steer. You take control of the wheel. And you selectively decide what fuel you allow in your fuel tank. If you're on E, but you're angry about something, and you show up using that fuel, good, it helped. In a very controlled, concise way. The other thing is you have to be able to show up even if you don't have any fuel. That's what discipline is. Using the fuel just helps, makes it easier. But showing up even when you're drained, when you're tired, when nothing is working, when you don't feel like it, when you could do anything else, everything's dragging you down, things are going on in your life, but you committed to doing something. You show up and you put in the discipline because you decided to do it. Fuck all the emotions that are trying to keep you back. Only use things to your advantage. Real Stoicism is about being completely enveloped in an emotion, but still deciding to be grounded and move forward, being gentle without breaking anything. It's deciding is this emotion worth acting on? Emotions are especially important and pertinent for survival situations. You're out somewhere hiking and you see your friend start to get attacked by an animal. And you get angry. You might get scared too, which is fine, but you choose which to fuel you. And you use that fuel, whether it be fear, whether it be anger, to attack that animal. The mother that lifted the several-ton car off of her child. Yes, was it mostly adrenaline that helped her? Of course. But where did that adrenaline come from? It came from an emotion. That came from fear of her child dying, from anger of that happening, that situation. She used her emotions in a very controlled way. The other thing is we have to build up a resilience. I think there is this skill that doesn't really have a word for it. If anything, it would be emotional regulation, but I don't think that fully describes it. We need to be able to have a high threshold between what we feel inside and what we let out. That is what Stoicism is. It's being selective about our emotions within, of what to let out. Think about a child. A child, when their popsicle breaks in half, what do? They cry, they scream, they shout. They have no threshold of emotional regulation. And some adults, maybe not in the exact same situation, but basically the adult version of that still happens. Someone in another car passes you and they flip you off and they get all bent out of shape, screaming and shouting, "That motherfucker!" You need to learn to regulate that. This is something that needs to be strengthened and actually actively trained. It's not something that just develops. It needs to be practiced. And it's practiced by going through hard shit and intentionally reacting in a positive, not necessarily positive, but in a stoic way. Stoicism isn't about completely shutting off the emotion. You're allowed to feel it. You're allowed to process it. And sometimes that takes time. But the immediate reaction, it's a skill to not immediately react on emotions. And the better that you can regulate your emotions, the better it will help you and the better that you will feel. The better your life will become. Because you'll be able to do things without flying off the handle. You won't feel as, if you process your emotions, you won't feel as negatively emotional. Meaning your quality of life will feel better. Even the act of being stoic lowers the feelings because you get used to that. Because you're putting yourself through things to build that stoicism. Taking cold showers. You know what happened with me? I was 17 and I had been taking cold showers for a couple months beforehand. I've been really focusing on self-improvement and building that resilience within. What I did was I kept building that resilience. When bad things would come up, I would kind of shrug it off and say, it is what it is. And I would not fly off the handle as much. Even if I didn't really before as greatly, there was a noticeable shift. And one day, I had sliced open my thumb with a utility knife. My immediate reaction was, ow. My immediate reaction was that, okay, that was, obviously I was a bit frightened at first. And then I'm like, well, you know what? Okay, this is what happened. Let me go get stitched up. That's it. I don't know. My thumb's open. Nothing I can really do about that. And I was fine. Thumb's all good. What would have flying off the handle have served me? It wouldn't have served me any. Especially if you're trying to lead your own life. If you fly off the handle every time something happens, you're not going to have a very clean path. It's going to be full of just noise. You're not going to be able to get from point A to point B in a very clean, direct manner. There are things waiting around the corner at all times to damper your mood. It's fine. It's part of life. Don't worry about it. It'll come and you can deal with them. That's the mindset that you should have. We need to think about our emotions before we act on them. At least the very intense ones. There's nothing wrong with men crying in and of itself. The issue lies in when we stay there and when we do it over things that are undeserving of having a weak emotional regulation and thinking that that is going to serve you. As a man, if you want to be respected, and if you want to be able to work through anything in your life and consistently build something, there's no way around it. You must build that emotional resistance, that emotional regulation. You can't be getting upset over small things constantly. I'd say there's two levers here. Having a emotional reaction and emotional regulation. Now, in the moment, you can't directly really control an emotional reaction. You feel what you feel. But over time, you can learn to not let things bother you as much. And that comes from learning that things aren't worth getting upset over. Now, that counteracts what I was saying earlier about having fuel and emotion, using emotions as fuel. It sounds like it counteracts that, but it doesn't, because like I said, lower level emotions are wasty. They're taxing on you. They're taxing on the mind, body, and soul. So we do want to try to avoid them. But if you have nothing else, at least then you would have something. So there's emotional reaction. We don't want to get upset over a popsicle breaking in half. Right? As a kid, we might get upset over that. But as we get older and as we need to take on more responsibilities, as we progressively become a stronger, more intelligent, capable being, we want to let go of the things that will rile us up that are just small, minor inconveniences. So that already helps in and of itself. That's the first layer. The second layer is Stoicism. Because no matter how much you don't feel that, and let me be very clear, that's not about emotional suppression. That is not about emotional suppression. You don't want to suppress your emotions either. You just want to build a mentality, a mindset that is resistant to minor inconveniences. Not because it's fake, not because you're suppressing an emotion and you're trying to say, no, I'm bigger than this, when really you're really hurt inside of it. Feel your emotions. Don't suppress them. But don't act on every emotion. Which is the second thing. Stoicism. Don't act on every emotion. You want to recognize when an emotion is worth acting on or not. Typically, survival situations, emotions can and should be acted on. But it depends on the situation. For most day-to-day things, you want to take a step back before you cause harm in a blast radius and explode. You don't want to fake stoicism either. Faking stoicism just leaves you feeling numb and leaves you bottled up inside without ever actually properly processing emotions. You don't want to do it just because you want to feel more mature. Real stoicism is taking in the feeling, deciding what is the best principle to act on, acting on principle rather than on the feeling, and moving forward. Fake stoicism is feeling the emotion, pretending that it didn't affect you, and avoiding it completely. You don't want to avoid your emotions. You don't want to suppress them. You don't want to pretend that they're not there. You do want to train yourself to properly tell your emotions where to go, to be able to process them in a helpful, healthy way. Processing your emotions is very important. And it doesn't always happen in the instant that they arise. Emotional suppression as a last resort in the moment might be acceptable. Because, hey, just real quick, a lot of guys watching this are fighting their urges in silence, thinking they just need more willpower. But that couldn't be further from the truth. And that's exactly why I created this free training. It walks you through the exact emotional shifts that help me stop chasing urges and start rewiring. If porno lust is a part of your struggle, I think it'll really help. Links below. Let's say you were going on a first date and then your date cancels, right? And you're already there at the place. And that really sets you off, pisses you off. The correct move is not to blow up, scream and shout, throw the chair, and yell at the servers. It's common sense, but like, that's an example, right? And some people do that. Even if it does greatly piss you off. Emotions are typically processed best in private. At least not in an external way. In private can just be in your own mind. You can still be in public walking around, but if you're processing it in here rather than exuding that, not even exuding that, but like acting on that, then that's Stoicism. And you do want to give yourself time to process emotions. Which is why I said earlier that men can cry. Crying over something that is a great detriment is healthy. It helps you get it out of your system. It helps you process and learn from what you're feeling, why you're feeling it. Especially if it's something that you can't change. It helps you move forward. You could suppress it. But I'd argue that that would come back to bite you. Because it hardens your heart. It makes you a more numb in general, less content individual. It's grating on the soul. And the one thing that I said earlier about emotions that is the greatest detriment is feeling nothing at all. So if you want to stack points towards feeling nothing at all, towards numbness, towards not living, then suppress your emotions and don't let yourself process them ever. We are emotional creatures. Pretending that we're not is a disservice to yourself and to others. Because it makes you less connectable and relatable. It makes you feel less. Which will in turn make you do less. Have that long-term desire for anything. People that pretend that they don't need to feel emotions, in a way, something that they are doing is for an emotional reason. There's short-term emotions and there's long-term emotions. Short-term emotions is what I've been talking about mostly, about flying off the handle when an inciting incident happens. Long-term emotions are what we do things for. It could be fear, for example. You go to college for 4 years and get yourself a degree and do a job that you don't really like. I'm not saying that necessarily that's always the case. I'm just saying in this example, so for example, you get a degree and you get a job that you don't really like and you pursue that for 4 or 5 years, right? Let's say you get the job after 4 years. Why did you do that? It was out of a long-term fear of not having stability. So you valued the higher income more than your own general well-being and fulfillment. And I'm not making a case right now for whether, I'm not even going to delve into the implications of that or like whether I'm saying that's wrong or right. My point is that there's also, that's one example. Another example could be someone going to work day in, day out, making good money so that they can provide for their family. It's out of love, of wanting their family to be happy. We have long-term emotions too. The reasons that we do things is long-term emotions. Maybe it's you want to make your father proud. Long-term emotion. Maybe you want to make yourself proud. Let's say you get hit with something hard. Maybe it's betrayal. Maybe it's failure. Maybe it's rejection. How do you actually process that? The way that you can process emotions is by thinking it through. And thinking and thinking and thinking. Now, you don't want to spiral into it. But if you allow yourself to think about it and not just shrug it off, again, you do want to raise your emotional reactivity resistance. Coining a new term, emotional reactivity resistance. Resilience, sorry. You do want to raise your emotional reactivity resilience of what actually upsets you without suppression. But doing something like going on a walk, if something is truly bothering you, something that is real, and that you know in your heart of hearts that is a real thing that deserves your attention, doing something like going on a walk or sitting and thinking and allowing yourself to feel the emotions. Don't run from it, but think about why you're feeling it. Think about all the implications of it. And not necessarily even, it doesn't have to be logical. Sometimes if there's confusion along with it, then it can be logical and then it becomes a emotional and logical thing. But if it's just emotional, sometimes just feeling the emotion, allowing yourself to feel that. And then formulate a plan of action too. What you're going to do next if there is anything to do next. If you're grieving a death, for example, allow yourself to feel that. Most people avoid what they feel, and they push it down and numb themselves with substances, with porn, with hedonism. That is the incorrect approach. The correct approach is to process it. I know it hurts. I know it sucks. But in order to get through, you need to face it. You can't run from it indefinitely. And it's not just going to magically get better. Not unless you sit and process it and decide to do something about it. Some people, journaling is what helps them process. Some people, it's going on a walk. And it doesn't have to be all processed at once. It can be processed in bits and stages. Your body can only take so much emotion at once. Which is why we often feel that numbing it is the correct move. But you've got to feel it. Allow yourself to feel it. I would say that you can't do that indefinitely. You can't just always stay stuck in the feeling phase, because you never move forward that way. And you gotta, in the between of that, take some sort of action to continue improving your life. There is a bit of, okay, that's as much as I need for today. That's as much as I can take of that emotion for today. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that. And that you need to get back to doing what you need to do. That's a part of it. I'm not going to pretend that, unless something completely terrible happens, I'm not going to pretend that we can just always sit around and feel and feel and feel. Because the unfortunate reality of life is that we do need to move the ball forward. We do need to keep going. Life continues. But that doesn't mean that you can't process it while you're moving forward. It's a delicate balance for sure. I'd argue that you do need to keep moving forward and keep taking steps, especially as a man. But the important thing is to not allow it to allow the forward progress or any other thing of distraction to be a replacement for processing. Processing can be as simple as feeling the emotion and feeling and allowing it to get out in some way. Another great form of processing emotion is to make art. That is what people typically make art for. You're letting this internal feeling get outside of you and say, this is my feeling. I'm taking it and I'm putting it out here. Not even necessarily for other people. sharing that and allowing other people to relate and feel that with you can be helpful for them to process too. Feeling and seeing other people going through the same things that you are. That can be helpful as well. You can be the consumer or you can be the creator. Both help process. And emotions aren't just this negative thing of, I need to put this behind me. They are a part of you. It might seem like you just want to completely ignore it and get through it. But it makes sense that certain things are just going to have an impact on you. And we must remember to be kind to ourselves. People talk about the inner child. The inner child could be equated to what's feeling these things. We must care for that inner child. We must care for ourselves. We must allow ourselves to feel and not pretend that everything's okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay there indefinitely. You got to do both. You got to process and take steps forward. It's the only way to continue living, to continue feeling alive and feeling at peace, to get to that peaceful state again, that homeostasis. Back to what I was saying about the art. If you feel all this resistance within, and you're able to create something that encapsulates that feeling for yourself subjectively in some sort of creative way, no matter what anybody else thinks of it, it is a very healing process. Creating art and getting it outside of yourself gives that feeling a tangible element. And it's almost like the process of creating that from start to finish allows you to end the process of mourning it. Not necessarily. But it might be that you ended the process of mourning that chunk of that emotion. It's healing in some way. It doesn't matter how skilled you are at whatever art endeavor that you choose to take on. All that matters is that it was a healing process for you. And sometimes that's how we get into art forms and get better. Because we're allowing ourselves to externalize these feelings in a healthy and productive way. Sometimes that's all we need. Another way is by talking it out. Talking out your feelings. And again, not necessarily constantly and indefinitely and all the time, but bit by bit, chunk by chunk. It allows us to get the within outside. You're taking that and you're turning it into sound waves and thoughts, and you're getting it out. And in doing so, it heals a part of you within. I've also heard, I also know that for me personally too, that meditation can help heal your inner wounds. You're allowing yourself to remain still in silence. But that's in external silence. When you don't have anything external pushing in, your mind tunes to the internal and you allow yourself to process within. And there's different forms of meditation. But it can allow yourself to let go of those emotions. Not because they are bad for you, but because that's the process of emotional healing. Because that emotion attached to you and then you're letting go of that attachment. It's neither good nor bad. It's just the way of life, of healing, of finding peace. Which meditation in and of itself is a very grounding and peaceful process. You're allowing peace into your container. And you only have so much space within. So when you invite peace into your container, in a very loving way, it pushes out the lowest emotion. It replaces it. It takes up space. You don't have to fix it in the moment, but you do have to face it, either little by little or all at once, or however you face it. Everybody handles things differently. And you've got to find a way that works, or multiple ways that work for you. Otherwise, it'll start to corrupt your being. And you won't be able to feel the highest joys of life. The happiest people aren't the people that haven't gone through anything. People get that misconception all the time. How lucky it is for these people, how ignorant they must be to the real throes of life. Look at them jumping around and frolicking with rose-tinted glasses. Might be 1% of the happiest people. But the more realistic, truthful truth of the matter is that those people have gone through the worst situations. Because going through the worst situations teaches you how to handle everything else. The people that have survived a hurricane, sailing at sea, are going to be happier on mildly rough waters. Whereas the people that have experienced only light waters will likely be upset, irritated, and angry about their mildly rough waters. It can be a soul cleansing thing, going through something and coming out the other side. Because it teaches you so much. It teaches you there are worse things in life. It teaches you how to go to the bottom of the ocean and come back up, rather than just staying surface level. And I don't think there's any way to learn that other than firsthand. That's not something that you can pass down. That's something that each man and woman have to go through for themselves. And it sucks. Suffering sucks. But it's the greatest teacher. And the only way to grow. So that we can be happy. So that we can be fulfilled and content and peaceful and serene. You have to go through something and process it and come out the other side better, stronger, more enlightened. Without staying stuck and dwelling in it or numbing yourself to it. Because you know what? What can happen is you plunge down into the depths, right? You plunge into the depths of the ocean. You get dragged down into the shit. And a lot of people will just, instead of being able to come back up and resurface and be like, oh my God, I can see the sun. I can be okay on the surface now and be happy. A lot of people numb and distract themselves from ever moving forward. And sometimes moving forward isn't an easy thing. Sometimes you don't know how to. Sometimes it's not a straight and cut thing, which can keep you stuck down there. But you've got to keep trying. You've got to keep processing it bit by bit so that you can come back up someday. You can't ever give up that hope of the light at the end of the tunnel. Ever. It is the best position on the chessboard. It is the best move that you can make to maintain that hope and faith. Which is why a lot of people turn spiritual and religious, because it gives them that hope and faith. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. You don't necessarily need that. You just must maintain that hope and faith that you will be the one to carve yourself out of it, to get yourself through. And that you will receive help. And somehow, some way, you will get through this. If you have to write it out 10 times every morning to reaffirm to your subconscious, do it. If you have to watch enough positive affirmations and repeat them to yourselves, anything it takes to maintain that hope. We can't move forward if we're hopeless. If our mind gives up, if our spirit gives up, we're giving up our entire being at that point. Our body's going to give up. I don't care how desperate the situation is. Believe that there is a positive future for you. Whatever it takes to believe that. Hold on to that. Because it's the only way that you're ever going to keep going. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe that and you take action and process your emotions and do all the right steps, it is 1,000 times more likely that you will actually surface and be able to have that light in your life that you so desire, that things will get better. I speak from experience. It's not going to get better by itself, most likely. But as long as you try, as long as you take steps every day, you're almost guaranteed a more positive life. And little steps every day compound. And 1 year from now, you'll be able to look back on an imperfect journey, but a cumulative one. And see how far you've come and see how much more positive your life is. You don't want to get stuck at the depth of way down below the surface and not move, not take action, or even worse, numb yourself. And because if you numb yourself and avoid all the way down there, it guarantees that you can't move forward. If you're stuck at the depths of darkness and you numb yourself, nothing's going to pull you back up. Nothing but you. At least you can't rely on it. And you're more likely to receive help along the way if you can take the actions along with the help. But if you're stuck down there and you're deciding to quit or deciding to infinitely numb yourself, which I understand the reasons why. And it's not so black and white that it's just like, well, stop numbing yourself. I understand that. People fall into habits. I understand that completely. But you've got to make the effort. You've got to make at least have the aim and take real, tangible steps. You've got to keep trying. Suppose you are dealing with something and you're down there in the thick of it, deep below the surface. How do you start? How do you begin? What do you do from there? What you want to do is to show yourself that you haven't given up, that you are still capable, that you are still here. You are alive. And you can still find beauty and hope in this situation. Whatever situation you might be in. And not only that, but you can start to take small actions today. Do something simple as an act of self-love. Self-love isn't just hugging yourself and saying, I love myself. If anything, that's self-acceptance. But I'm not necessarily advocating for hugging yourself. If that's your thing, cool. But like, I personally don't see the appeal of that. Self-acceptance, on the other hand, I get. You want to accept yourself and build your self-esteem, which is important. But self-love is nurturing the inner child in both ways, in a masculine and in a feminine way. In a masculine way, by showing that inner self that it still has potential, that you still have potential, that you can make it out of this by not just pampering yourself only. We'll get to that. That's the feminine side. Which it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You want both forces within. So you want to be able to take action to get yourself up off the ground. Doing something as simple as cleaning your bedroom for 10 minutes is such a positive reinforcer to yourself to show that you can change and that you can do things that are in your benefit and that you care about yourself, that you don't want yourself living in a filthy environment. If you're with a partner, would you want them living in a filthy environment? Probably not, if you care about them, right? Well, why don't we show that same care to ourselves? We can, and we should. Another thing we can do is to talk to a friend to ensure we're not completely cutting ourselves off socially. Again, would you want someone that you care about to isolate themselves in totality? Probably not. But it's easier to do with ourselves because we're viewing it from a different viewpoint. Another thing is as I've been talking about, is to allow yourself to feel. Let your guard down, even if just for 5 minutes. Allow yourself to cry. Yes, things must be done. Yes, we must move on. Yes, we must still act and continue with life. But taking 5 minutes for yourself to do that refreshes your being and is so much healthier than avoiding it or pretending everything's fine. When it's not. Once you start to take those small incremental actions for yourself, you want to continue that and build that momentum. You want to build on each one. And continue to take steps that will improve you. And that's how you climb out. As you mix the daily actions of taking action towards a passion of some sort, of something that you want, a goal, something that you want to conquer, or maybe multiple things. As you want to have that mission in life. Having that mission in life holds that space of having a purpose in your core. And that could be your partner. That could be your family. That could be your job. That could be art that you're creating. It's subjective. How you want to live your life is your decision. but we do want to do it in a productive, healthy way. So having that gives you that fulfillment and keeps you from doing nothing at all and feeling nothing at all and keeping you stuck. In a way, you could say it's a distraction, but it's more than just a distraction. Because you're turning your energies, your time, your focus into something real. Whatever that real thing may be. It's real to you. And then you also want to, alongside that, supplement it with doing self-caring actions, healthy things for your mind, body, and soul, such as feeling the feelings instead of avoiding them, meditation, working out. If you show your body self-love, you don't think that will have an impact? It's been studied to death. Working out is one of the best things that you can do for your mental health. So don't skip that step, especially. Eating healthier foods. These are acts of self-love because they're not allowing yourself that you're saying you love yourself too much to allow yourself to do XYZ or not do XYZ. And then those will help you do every other thing too. And as you do both, as you manage being kind to yourself, giving your mind, body, and spirit what it needs to feel healthy, including your emotional side, your physiological side, your body, watering the good plants in your mind, feeding yourself inspirational, positive, uplifting content, and not doing the reverse of these of too much unhealthy food or being lazy and laying around without ever moving or feeding yourself negative content that pulls you down. That will feed that side of you, which in turn will feed the other side of you that's a go-getter, that will be able to do your passion. And that passion will fuel the other side of you that's emotional. And it will be an upward spiral. It's a beautiful balance of forces within. And it's different from person to person, the ratio of each. Whether you will be more masculine driven, of being a conqueror, or building something, being a builder, a leader, or more emotionally driven. And there's nothing wrong with either. You just got to find and search within what is best for you. And not out of because it's laziness or because it's you don't want to do it. I guarantee that there is a feeling, an intuition within that is drawing you towards one of two sides. of either wanting to nourish everything through the direct nourishment itself, of taking care of things. And building other people up. And feeling very strongly in your emotions. Your positive emotions. Or wanting to be a builder and a leader and a provider and a protector. And whichever one you gravitate towards, lean into that. And you will find your truest fulfillment. And a lot of times, things will work themselves out in actually putting energy towards these things. And by growing yourself, by improving yourself in this way. Getting better. Hey, before you go, you made it this far, which means you're a part of the 1% that actually want to improve. So here's a free gift for you in case you want to break free from porn or lust. It's a 10-minute yin-yang training. It's straight to the point. It shows you how I actually overcame the urge loop without only relying on discipline. It's 100% free, and it's the first link in the description. I highly recommend starting there today if that's something that you'd like to stop.